The heat over Cypress Hollow, Louisiana, was the kind that made the air shimmer and the pavement bleed tar. Tasha Mae Dupree, 23 and stunning in a dangerous sort of way, ran a food truck called Crimson Kitchen parked just outside the Saturday farmers market. Locals lined up for her jambalaya and gumbo, swearing her dishes tasted better than their grandmama's recipes. Nobody knew her secret ingredient was more than spices. Tasha had been cutting her own finger and stirring a drop of her blood into every pot for months. It started as a dare, half witchcraft, half drunken whim, after her ex, Justin, humiliated her in front of half the town. Her best friend, Corey, had joked, "Girl, cook with your blood, and they'll be addicted to you instead of him." The next morning, Tasha tried it, expecting nothing. By noon, her line wrapped around the block. By the next week, people fought for her food. The whispers began, husbands ditching Sunday service to help at her truck, women crying in their kitchens because their families demanded Tasha's gumbo or nothing. As the profits rolled in, so did enemies. The market's reigning queen bee, Jolene Parker, owner of Bayou Bites, watched her customers disappear. Jolene's cousin Luke, a charming but broke handyman, warned her that girls got something unnatural in them pots. Jolene rolled her eyes but kept watching. Meanwhile, Tasha's younger sister, Sierra, who'd been scraping by on a waitress's paycheck, started hinting for a cut of the earnings. "Family's family, right?" she said sweetly, but Tasha knew the threat beneath. By July, Tasha's food truck had become the beating heart of Cypress Hollow. A local preacher even declared her gumbo a taste of heaven. But strange things began happening. A feral dog was found ripped open behind the market, and an old woman swore she saw Tasha's shadow moving on its own under the full moon. Tasha brushed it off, but her reflection in the kitchen window sometimes lagged a second behind. Corey grew uneasy. One humid night, as they cleaned up, she muttered, "Tash, this ain't just good cooking. Folks ain't right after eating your food." Tasha smirked but said nothing. The thrill of power, the rush of attention, it was addictive. When Luke offered to help her expand to Baton Rouge, Tasha agreed, not realizing Jolene was already plotting revenge. What none of them knew, the thing feeding on Tasha's blood had developed a taste for more than food. It wanted a sacrifice. The first Baton Rouge pop-up was a roaring success. City folks raved about Tasha's dishes, and local food bloggers called her the Queen of Cajun Flavor. But that night, after packing up, Tasha caught a glimpse of her own reflection in the truck's chrome bumper. The face staring back had faint, glowing eyes. She blinked, and it was gone. Driving home under Spanish moss-draped oaks, Tasha felt an itch under her skin. It wasn't the Louisiana humidity. It was hunger, but not hers. Something inside her stirred restlessly, whispering for more. She cranked up the radio, trying to drown it out. Sierra, jealous of her sister's sudden fame, showed up uninvited the next morning. "You're acting high and mighty," she accused, "but you wouldn't be nothing without me covering for you when Mama thought you were at Bible study instead of sneaking out." Tasha forced a laugh, handing Sierra an apron. "Then earn your cut, baby sis. Chop those onions." Sierra's eyes narrowed, already scheming. Meanwhile, Jolene wasn't just gossiping anymore. She drove to a backwoods trailer to see old man Broussard, a reclusive conjure worker. He listened, chewing tobacco, as she explained. "That Dupree girl's using something foul." Broussard spat into the dirt. "Blood binds. If she's feeding folks her essence, it'll bind to her, and to whatever's feeding on her. But it always asks for payback." Jolene's heart raced. A plan was forming. At the next farmer's market, Luke lingered near Tasha's truck, flirting under the pretense of helping. Jolene watched from afar, her smile tight as barbed wire. She'd bait Luke with promises of a bigger payday to turn on Tasha. Betrayal was always sweeter when it came from someone trusted. Luke's betrayal came quietly, wrapped in charm. He started slipping questions into their late-night chats while wiping down tables after the Baton Rouge pop-up. "So, what's your secret? Folks say your gumbo's got something special in it." Tasha laughed it off, but her eyes flicked toward the cutting board where she'd nicked her finger earlier. He noticed. That evening, Jolene found Luke outside Bayou Bites. "She tell you anything?" she asked, voice syrupy but sharp. Luke grinned. "Not yet. But she trusts me. Keep your checkbook ready." Jolene pressed a wad of cash into his hand. "Get proof." Back at Crimson Kitchen, Sierra's resentment grew hotter. Customers adored her sister, and Luke's lingering gaze on Tasha gnawed at her. Sierra began slipping extra drops of Tasha's secret into side dishes, hoping for chaos. One night, a teenage boy who'd eaten a too-rich bowl of gumbo stumbled home, muttering Tasha's name over and over, his eyes glazed like someone in a trance. Corey confronted Tasha after closing. "Something's wrong. People ain't themselves." Tasha's hands trembled as she wiped the counter. "It's harmless," she whispered. "They're just loyal." But in the reflection of the truck's window, she saw something behind her, a shadowy, red-eyed shape grinning where nothing should have been. That night, Tasha woke to find her own blood beading on her skin without a cut. The whispers were louder now, a chorus promising power but demanding a worthy offering. She thought of her success, of Justin's humiliation, of Luke's warm hands on hers. She told herself she was in control. But the thing she'd unleashed was already choosing its sacrifice. The sheriff's cruiser lingered near Crimson Kitchen the following afternoon. Tasha tried to keep her smile steady for customers, but sweat slicked her palms. Inside, the whispers purred, urging her to feed, to expand, to bind the whole town. Luke slipped away during her busiest hour to meet Jolene behind Bayou Bites. "She trusts me completely," he said, pocketing another roll of cash. Jolene's painted lips curled into a smirk. "Good. We'll expose her at the Harvest Festival. Let her choke on her own lies." Meanwhile, Sierra discovered Luke's double game. Watching him kiss Tasha and then sneak to Jolene cracked something inside her. She realized she wasn't part of Luke's or Jolene's plan, she was just another pawn. Hatred settled in her bones like swamp mud. That night, Tasha cooked alone, the food truck bathed in the glow of a flickering street lamp. The whispers grew louder, no longer seducing but commanding, the harvest moon. Blood must spill. She dropped a ladle, her heart hammering, but part of her thrilled at the power curling around her like smoke. Across town, Corey prayed in her bedroom, clutching a silver cross. She loved Tasha like a sister but feared she'd be forced to destroy her. The wind outside her window carried a faint, chilling echo of laughter, the kind that didn't belong to anyone alive. The Harvest Festival transformed Cypress Hollow into a twinkling dream. String lights draped across the oaks, kids darted between hay bales, and the air was thick with the scent of caramel apples and gumbo. Crimson Kitchen was the star attraction, its red food truck gleaming under the moonlight. The line stretched farther than Jolene had ever seen. Luke stood by Tasha's side, handing out bowls with a charming grin, while his phone secretly recorded everything. Jolene lingered near the stage, waiting for her moment to expose Tasha. Sierra, leaning against a fence post, watched them all with a hard, cold glare, jealousy, rage, and desperation all tangled inside her. The whispers hummed louder than ever in Tasha's head. As she ladled the gumbo, her vision blurred. For a heartbeat, the faces of her customers melted into twisted masks of hunger. She blinked, and they looked normal again. Luke touched her arm. "You okay?" She nodded, though the voices were nearly deafening now. "Blood. Now." When the band struck up a lively Cajun tune, Jolene climbed the stage stairs and grabbed the microphone. "Folks," she announced, "y'all been eating something unnatural. Dupree's been feeding you her blood." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Tasha froze, her ladle trembling. The whispers surged, "Silence them or be devoured." Suddenly, the gumbo pot boiled over, though the flame was low. The air thickened, glowing faintly red. The townsfolk's eyes widened as a monstrous shadow rose behind the crimson kitchen truck, something ancient and hungry, finally stepping into the world. The festival's laughter turned to screams. Screams ripped through the night as the red glow flared brighter, casting grotesque shadows across the hay bales. Parents snatched up their children and bolted, but many adults stood transfixed, their eyes glazing over as if the thing's hunger had hypnotized them. The monstrous shadow expanded, its form shifting between smoke and flesh. Tasha felt its power surge through her veins like wildfire, yet she also sensed it wasn't hers to command anymore. Luke backed away, his phone forgotten, his bravado gone. What is that?" he whispered. Sierra stepped forward, her lips curled in a bitter smile. "Your meal ticket, Tasha. You fed them all, but you never thought it would come for you." She tossed a bowl of blood-tainted gumbo at the shadow's feet, and it hissed like hot oil on iron. Corey pushed through the panicked crowd, clutching her silver cross. "Tash, you can still fight it," she shouted. The whispers grew shrill, twisting Corey's name into something cruel. Tasha looked between her sister, Luke, and Corey, the people she had loved, used, and betrayed. The thing lunged, snatching a man from the edge of the crowd and dragging him toward the glowing pot. The Harvest Festival's joyful music still played faintly from the stage, an eerie soundtrack to the nightmare. Tasha realized with horror, the only way to stop it was to give it what it wanted most, her own willing sacrifice. Tasha stepped toward the monster, her heart pounding like a drumline at Mardi Gras. The whispers softened as if sensing her resolve. "Let them go," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "Take me instead." Luke grabbed her arm. "Don't be stupid, we can run." She shook him off, her eyes locked on the shadow. Sierra's breath caught. For a fleeting second, her anger faltered. This was her sister, the girl who once shared secrets under a blanket fort during summer storms. But the years of jealousy hardened her again. "Let her pay," she hissed. Corey sobbed openly, clutching her cross so tightly her knuckles whitened. "Tash, please." But Tasha smiled faintly, a tear sliding down her cheek. "I made this mess, Corey. It ends tonight." She stepped into the glowing red light, feeling her body grow weightless as the shadow enveloped her. A blinding flash erupted, knocking everyone to the ground. When the light faded, the monstrous figure and Tasha were gone. The gumbo pot lay cracked and empty, steam rising from its ruined base. The festival grounds were silent except for the wind rustling the Spanish moss. In the days that followed, Cypress Hollow spoke Tasha's name only in whispers. Jolene closed Bayou Bites and moved to Texas. Luke skipped town overnight, leaving Jolene's cash behind. Sierra lingered in the quiet streets, guilt gnawing at her soul. Sometimes, when the moon turned red over the bayou, the wind carried a familiar laugh, soft, seductive, and hungry, reminding them all that some debts are never truly paid.